بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا وفقها في الدين يا رب العالمين. وفقنا للعمل بما يرضيك عنا وإلى غيرك لا تكلنا. افتح أقفال قلوبنا بذكرك وألهمنا شكرك واجعلنا من أهل معرفتك ولا تجعلنا من الغافلين. تب علينا توبة نصوحا يا رب العالمين. Amen. Alhamdulillah, last time we have covered almost half of the chapter on Tawakkul, reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, today we'll complete it, bi'iznillah. Just to do a quick recap from the last session. So we covered in the last session the meaning of Tawakkul, the divisions of Tawakkul, levels of Tawakkul, which we will elaborate on today, inshallah, or tonight actually. And the essence of Tawakkul is all about putting your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this trust comes from three things, as Ghazali mentioned, rahimahullah ta'ala. So he talks about the reality of Tawakkul and levels of Tawakkul. Let me share with you the slide which I created, which will be more. So this is what we covered from last time. So based on Ghazali's elaboration, Ghazali rahimahullah talks about Tawakkul, haqiqa and darajat. So it's reality and levels. And under the reality of Tawakkul, we have three pillars. And the pillar number one is Tawakkul cannot be without knowledge. So in order to have Tawakkul, you have to have knowledge. And this knowledge, Ghazali goes into, this is what we spent probably most of the time last time, talking about the essence of Tawakkul, based on Tawheed, monotheism of Allah, based on La ilaha illallah. He is the one who is in control of everything. He is the powerful, he is the mighty, he is, and so on. So this is on division number one. Number two, which is the state, hal. So Ghazali says it's ilm and hal and amal. So ilm first, which is the first pillar, and then second, which is the state. The state, it's an internal state of the heart. So you leave your affairs to Allah Azza wa Jal, your heart trusts Him, and you don't turn to anyone other than Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the state. So when we do tawakkul, this should be the state of the heart. You rely on Allah Azza wa Jal, you trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you don't turn to anyone other than Allah in your heart. It might be in reality you ask X, Y, and Z to help you, support you, that's fine. But in your heart, you are turning to Allah. And then Ghazali talks about the third division here, or pillar actually. He called it a pillar, rukun. The deeds, the action. The action is, it's about fruits of the state. So the fruits, which we will be covering tonight, inshallah ta'ala. How do we apply tawakkul? Yes, in our action. How do you apply tawakkul? Okay, we understood the theoretical part regarding knowledge. We understood the state of the heart regarding belief. Now, how do we translate this into action? Ghazali will talk about this today, inshallah. So he says the ignorant people might think that abandoning earnings and medical treatment is tawakkul, but this is absolutely wrong. So this is what we'll discuss, inshallah ta'ala. So on the action side, there are misconceptions. Misconceptions, because number one, the knowledge is not there. This is why Ghazali made it very clear. You need first the knowledge, and then the state of the heart, and then the action. But so many times, may Allah forgive us, many times we jump into the action without having the knowledge, without having the state of the heart, without having the right intention sometimes. Then we jump into the action. So Ghazali says you can't do this. Of course, I'm paraphrasing Ghazali, as you know now. You can't do this because your action has to be based on knowledge. And this knowledge, the fruit of this knowledge goes to the heart, and the heart translates this into an action. You see, it's just a chain connected to each other. So Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, he is saying regarding the action. So regarding the action, some ignorant people might think that the true tawakkul is about abandoning kasb or sa'i, as we say in Arabic. Sa'i or kasb, it means you go to work, you study for your exams, you go to your interview, you take the medicine, and so on. So he's saying many ignorant people think that tawakkul is totally against this. So in order to be a person of tawakkul, true reliance, then you need to abandon going to work. You just sit and wait for your rizq to parachute on you. Yes? And Ghazali is saying this is absolute nonsense. No, this is completely wrong. This is not tawakkul. If you want, we can call it, it's tawakkul. Instead of tawakkul, you add an alif in the middle, it becomes tawakkul, which is laziness. So tawakkul is completely against laziness. It isn't laziness. And we see Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam advice regarding the very, very famous statement, aqilha wa tawakkal. So tie your camel and then do tawakkul. So shall I leave my camel without tying it? Or shall I tie it and do tawakkul? Then aqilha wa tawakkal. Tie it and then do tawakkul. So tying the camel doesn't mean you have no tawakkul on Allah. Yes? So be careful. We need to get it right. Otherwise, confusion might come, and misconceptions and all these dilemmas can happen. So it's important to understand that true tawakkul, it goes with the common sense. It doesn't contradict common sense. It goes with the common sense, it goes with the understanding, and it's as well in line with the general guidance of the Sharia. Yes, because Allah Azza wa Jal, in many verses and in the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in many hadith, it's commanding us to go and earn halal money and seek the rizq and so on and so forth. So if we are doing this, does it mean that we have no tawakkul? No, definitely we do have tawakkul, but we need to do it in the right way. So we trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we don't look at anyone else, i.e. in our belief that He is the controller, Azza wa Jal, He is the provider, He is the sustainer and the protector, and so on. So we only turn to Allah Azza wa Jal in our hearts. Al-Ghazali mentioned as well that the levels of tawakkul are 3 levels. 3 levels. Level number 1 is like trusting someone for his knowledge, for his sympathy, for his guidance, for his understanding, and you delegate your matters to him, like in a case court or something along these lines. So this is level number 1. And level number 2, he says, it's like the little boy with his mother, which is better than level 1. It's like he's relying on his mother. And level number 3, he says it's beyond these two levels. It's like the dead body in the hands of the one who's washing it. This is, I know it's a bit difficult to get into this or to understand what Ghazali is saying, but we'll come to this inshallah later. So he's saying that level number 1 is about full trust. Your heart feels comfortable in the knowledge of this person, or the sympathy of this person, or the experience or expertise. So this is why you delegate your matters to him. This is on human level. So between us and Allah Azza wa Jal, of course, Allah's knowledge is beyond comprehension. Allah's rahmah is beyond comprehension. Allah's guidance is beyond comprehension. So he's just giving us a flavor, if you want, on how do you do tawakkul. So you have somebody with these criteria, you trust him. So what about Allah? Has the perfect attributes, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you ought to trust Allah Azza wa Jal the most, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he says the level 2 is about like the little boy with his mother, or little girl with her mother. So clinging to her, and if she fed her, she will eat. Otherwise, she will still, or he will ask for food or cry, or these kind of things. So you are like the little boy or little girl with his or her mother, relying on her love, on her compassion, and so on. But the third level, Ghazali is saying, it's beyond this. It's like the dead body in the hands of the one who is washing it. So, i.e., you have no choice. You don't pick. You leave the decision to him. And more likely, they talk about the station of Ibrahim alayhi salam, or the state of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Although these narrations are not that authentic, but we have it a lot in different books of tafsir and so on. So I'm not confirming the authenticity because it's not confirmed, but the Sufi books always quote this narration. When Ibrahim alayhi salam was flung into the fire, which Nimrud started to burn Ibrahim because of his action, he destroyed the idols and so on. So whilst he was flung into the fire, Jibreel came to him and he asked him, do you want anything? To just ask. He said, Allah knows my state, I have no need to ask. علمه بحالي يغني عن سؤالي. So his knowledge about my state spare me my question. I don't know, to be honest with you. It's a different level, if it's authentic anyway. So it's not something for general public or even knowledge seekers and so on. But again, Ghazali is just giving us another take on tawakkul's level. And the third pillar, Ghazali goes back to the third pillar, talks about the third pillar here is about doing it the right way, doing the tawakkul the right way, actually. And how do we do the tawakkul the right way? We don't follow the ignorant people's action or belief, because they might think that tawakkul is about doing nothing and waiting for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to do everything for you. No, Ghazali says plenty of ignorant people might think that the condition of true tawakkul is about abandoning kasb and tadawi. kasb, which is earning, so abandoning earning in order to achieve tawakkul, which is wrong, or abandoning seeking medical support or help. So again, Ghazali is saying this is as well wrong. Abandoning treatment is wrong. Rasulullah salam, he was doing kasb, earning and seeking his rizq, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he is the master of al-mutawakkilin, the master of those who rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And as well, he did not abandon the medical treatment, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. On the contrary, he commanded the believers by saying, tadawaw ibadallah, seek a medical treatment, O servants of Allah. So we need to get it right. I know some of you might say, yeah, we understand this. This is a common sense. Yeah, sometimes we need to state the obvious to confirm and to clarify some confusion people might have. The second thing, which Ghazali did not mention here, or the third thing might be, under the abandoning treatment and abandoning earnings and what have you, some people might go to the other extreme, i.e. relying on the treatment and the earnings and this and that, and their heart is very attached to this. So as well, this is wrong. So yeah, we have tawakkul, but we don't rely on these means which Allah created, like you go to work to earn money, you take the medicine to get better, and so on. We don't rely on these causes. And the real cause, or the real provision, is from Allah Azza wa Jal, the real cure from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah's way is connecting the cause with the action. So if you were to take medicine, Allah will create the healing when you take it. If you go to work and seek rizq, Allah will create facilitate your rizq, like the example of the bird which we have given last time. The bird leaves the nest searching for rizq, then Allah will facilitate the rizq for the bird, and so on. So this is the true understanding of tawakkul, if you want. So on the action side, yes, it's about dealing with the earnings, go and earn, but your heart, as Imam Sha'rawi rahimahullah, the Egyptian scholar, he has a statement on tawakkul. He says, al-qulubu tatawakkal wal-ajsadu ta'mal. So the hearts rely on Allah, but the bodies do the action. So it means you do tawakkul on Allah in your heart, but you go and earn, you go and seek rizq, you go and take medicine, you go and whatever it is required to be done. So Ghazali says, rahimahullah ta'ala, it's haram actually to abandon the earnings and to abandon the treatment, because the Sharia commands us to go and seek these means. Then Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala says, the action or the sa'i, the efforts of one's person is divided into 4 divisions. And let me share this with you again, just to make it clear. So if we have to do the sa'i and the efforts, what are these efforts? He says these efforts are divided into 4 divisions. Number 1, acquiring a benefit that is divided into 3 kinds of means. We'll come back to this later. So your action So you are going to work. What's the reason behind this? You are acquiring a benefit which is not in existence. So to get your salary, to get your experience and then training and what have you. Okay, and this is under your efforts. So your efforts is about acquiring a benefit. Might be work, might be other things. Or your effort might be to preserve a benefit that is in existence. You have something in existence and your efforts is to maintain it, to keep it, to grow it, to look after it. So this is part of our efforts. And you see the division of Al-Ghazali is comprehensive, rahimahullah ta'ala. Or your effort might be to repel harm so that it doesn't occur. Okay, so you might not be seeking a benefit, you might not be preserving a benefit, your efforts are into avoiding harm. And this is where we talk about maslaha and mafsad, manfa'a and madarra. And the Sharia, as we started a couple of weeks ago, a new book in the Arabic circle by Al-Imam Al-Izz bin Abd al-Salam, Sultan al-Ulama, rahimahullah ta'ala, called Al-Fawaid, Ikhtisar al-Maqasid. So his book is about a summary of his other book, Qawaid al-Ahkam fi Masalih al-Anam, or fi Islah al-Anam, two different versions of the name. But anyway, it's a book on masalih and mafasid. Masalih, which is benefit, or mafasid, harm. So the whole Sharia is based on bringing masalih, benefit to humanity and the world, and avoiding or preventing mafasid, which is harm. So here Al-Ghazali, because I told you many times, probably you still remember, that Ghazali is usuli a person. So he is a person of usul. So his mind, his way of thinking is talking about usul now. So our efforts, our actions are divided into four main divisions. So either to bring manfa'a, maslaha, a benefit, or, and this is divided into different divisions. Yeah, Imam Al-Izz bin Abd al-Salam in his book, when probably the whole book is about this. So he created a book, he wrote a book on the two concepts, Jalb al-Masalih wa Dar al-Mafasid, which we are now in one slide discussing it just briefly and quickly. So it's about preserving or acquiring a benefit, or it's about repelling harm, or trying to, number four, removing harm so that it's eliminated. So these are the four types of efforts which under sa'i, under the efforts of human and his action. Under number one, acquiring a benefit, and this can apply as well to other things. Under acquiring a benefit, he says it has three kinds of means. How do we do that? It might be decisive benefit, or it might be probable, or it might be unlikely. So, and he gave some different examples on that and so on. So here you go. We see that Al-Ghazali, rahimahullah ta'ala, he's teaching us about our actions. So why did he bring this to the discussion? He brought this to the discussion to show us that under the action, because again, going back to the map, to the map of Tawakkul. Under the map of Tawakkul, Al-Ghazali mentioned that Tawakkul is based on three things. Number one is knowledge. Number two is state of the heart. Number three, action, amal. So ilm, hal, and amal. So we are discussing the amal, the action. So this is why he's dividing the action into three main or four divisions. So our sa'i is into four divisions. Yeah. And then he elaborates on each example. So as we said under number one, acquiring a benefit has three means. So number one, he has given an example, like if you are very hungry and you have a dish of food around you or next to you. Okay, what do you do? If you are hungry and the food is in front of you, what do? You just eat from the dish. You move your hand and eat from the dish. If you didn't do that and you said, no, I'm a person of tawakkul, okay, this is so wrong. So what do you expect? The angel to come and feed you? Or the angel do this on your behalf? Or what do you expect? So he's giving this example because even around 1,000 years ago, Ghazali was almost passed away 505, rahimahullah ta'ala. There are many ignorant people in any community, even in Ghazali's time, in our time, until the day of judgment. So people will misunderstand things in a way that they corrupt it. So he's saying, okay, if you think that you are a person of tawakkul and the food is in front of you and you don't eat it, then there's a job just on your street, and they are seeking somebody who's like you in this profession or something along these lines, and you didn't apply. I'm person of tawakkul. Go and apply. Go and tell them I can do this job for you, or just give it to me or interview me or whatever. So you are hungry and you are not eating, then this is wrong. Or he gave another example. He says someone wants the fruits to grow in his garden, but he didn't plant the seed. What is this? Or someone wants a child and he did not have the proper relationship with his wife to get the child. So this can't happen. And this is complete ignorance. Ghazali says, وَهَذَا جَهْلٌ. So this is jahl, ignorance. Because Allah's way is clear. The sunnah of Allah, which He created in this universe, is clear. It will not change it for you. We have some exceptions, but you are not the exception. We have Maryam, for instance. She got a baby without marriage. She's the exception. She got the food without efforts. She's the exception. So don't compare yourself with the exception. Don't. So the link between cause and action is very clear. Allah has created in this universe. So you need to get it right and understand how to do and apply the tawakkul. The second thing Ghazali is saying here, that you will use your hand to eat, but whilst you are using your hand to eat, yes, or using the medicine to get better, you don't rely on your hand, you don't rely on the medicine, you rely on the creator of the medicine or the creator of your hand. How can you trust your hand or the power of your hand, and you might be paralyzed at any minute. You see? So this is why you say La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. The hawl, it means the action. So you can't get any action, you can't get any power but from Allah Azza wa Jal, because He can easily, just like this, cut the power from your system. And that's it. You stop functioning. So you use the means which Allah has given to you, but you rely on Him once you are using it. So you don't neglect it. When you use it, you don't rely on it. You see, these two things Ghazali is addressing here. And then the third thing he said, because he mentioned, as you see in the slide, decisive or clearly probable or unlikely. Yes, and the unlikely, which is when you take food with you in your journey, you are traveling in the desert, and you take your supply with you, food supply and water supply and what have you. So this is the must be done, actually. So you don't say I'm a person of tawakkul and I'll just go through the desert with no food, no water, no what have you. You will die. You might exceptionally find some means and live, but more likely, yes, you will die. So this is not tawakkul. So again, we might use this in other examples, not just in traveling through the desert. So Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, he's confirming a very important concept here, that we need to rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but at the same time, we need to follow the system which Allah created for us, not to corrupt the system, not to abuse the system, not to neglect the system, actually, yes, and not to misuse the system or confuse yourself whilst you are using the system. What do I mean by this? Like, you are going to work, but you believe that because you are going to work, or you are taking the medicine, and medicine is healing you. Actually, no, the medicine is not healing you. Allah created the property of healing in the medicine, and He can at any time take it from the medicine. Sometimes you take 2-3 pills and you feel nothing, it's not working. And sometimes even 1 pill is enough for you. So it depends. So again, we need to understand that the true tawakkul doesn't contradict the common sense. The true tawakkul is manifested in the action of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wassalam, where he was doing sallallahu alayhi wasallam business between Mecca and Syria or Sham at that time. And he was going from Mecca and Yemen and so on. When he went to Medina, he was as well still dealing with some businesses and so on and so forth. So this is on the earning side. On the medicine side, or medical means, if you want, he was alayhi salatu wassalam using the medicine of his time. And probably many of you do know or read some of the books that titled with prophetic medicine or At-Tibb al-Nabawi. Yes. So yes, he was sallallahu alayhi wasallam doing tawakkul, but the true sense of tawakkul, you just deal with the system which Allah created, but your heart, your mind, your focus is related to Allah Azza wa Jal, because He is the one who is creating this and making the system work and making things happen, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Rahimahullah al-Ghazali. And then he talks about saving. Saving, what's the link between tawakkul and saving? Because, okay, is saving against tawakkul? Because some as well confusion might come to some people and say, okay, I'm relying on Allah Azza wa Jal, I'm not saving anything for tomorrow, I eat what I have and then distribute the rest, and then my risk will come on a daily basis. Is saving for tomorrow or for 1 week or for 1 month, or it might be so for 1 year, as it happened with Rasulullah والسلام, at some point in his life, especially towards the end of his life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Does it negate tawakkul or contradict tawakkul? Ghazali is saying no. Of course, some people or some scholars will say, yes, saving more than 1 month or 1 year is against tawakkul. But to be honest with you, depends on the state of that person, depends on his scenario, depends on his circumstances, so we cannot generalize. And Ghazali as well talks about some very special people and exceptional people, that they distributed all their wealth and they are just living on day to day. Actually, we have some people in this country now like this, living day by day. They have no savings, they have nothing, they have so we need to do more tawakkul in this country, to be honest, especially these days. So he says there's some people, they have this tawakkul or application of tawakkul, that they have distributed their wealth. And he gave some examples about some names in Ihya Ulumuddin, a big book, which he summarized it in the 40 principles. So he talks about some names and some stories and so on and so forth. And they used to live on a day by day, and some of them will travel during the desert, through the desert with no food, no water, no this, no that, and they would survive. To be honest with you, these are odd and exceptional examples. It's not something to be followed at all. Our role model is Rasulullah alayhi salatu wassalam, and that's it. And I repeat it probably many times in different occasions, that Ibn Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala, when he was commenting on Siyam of special people in his book Lata'if al-Ma'arif, he said some people might fast on a daily basis, some people might do Qiyamul Layl every night, all night, some people might do this, might do that. And he said, to be honest, this is not the Sunnah. The Sunnah of Rasulullah wasn't like this. And these are barakah people. We seek their barakah, we seek their dua, but we don't follow their footsteps. We only follow the footsteps of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he is al-Qudwa, the role model to follow. And that's it. Whatever you read, whenever you read anything which is against the Sunnah of Rasulullah, just dismiss. Yes, we just being commanded to follow Rasulullah alayhi salatu wassalam, no one else. And we see even among his companions sallallahu alayhi wasallam, some people are more strict than others, and he did alayhi salatu wassalam reprimand, and he did tell them, don't do that. You can't keep it, you can't make it. If you were to push yourself too much, you can't keep it. So he advised them alayhi salatu wassalam in his lifetime, some of his companions, those who said I will fast every day, and the other one says I will refrain from marriage, and the other one says I will not eat meat, and the other one says I will not marry. So Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam was angry with them. He said that don't do that. You can't do this. Follow my sunnah. My sunnah is I do sleep and do qiyam, and I do fast and break my fast, and I do marry. And this is my sunnah. It means this is the way Islam is about creating balance and bringing balance into one's life between the needs of the soul and the needs of the body. So when you miss the balance, you start going offline. You start going off track. Even if you think that you are doing the right thing, but actually within the right thing, you might be just doing the wrong thing. So anyway, Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, he gave some examples about some exceptional cases, which is not to be followed. The cases which we follow is the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So yes, we do tawakkul on Allah. We do save, but of course, even when we save, we save and we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to put the barakah in our money and our earnings and our efforts, and we rely on Allah Azza wa Jal. That it's not in any shape or form. If you were to save, whether it's money or food or stuff, which will not be ruined if you were to save it, it's not against tawakkul, especially if there are some bad situations or unpredicted events might happen, or things that might affect your earnings, or so you have something just for a rainy day. That's absolutely fine. This is not against the tawakkul in any shape or form. So Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, he is just giving us a summary of what tawakkul is about, and reality of tawakkul, and true meaning of tawakkul, and divisions of tawakkul, and the application of tawakkul. So application of tawakkul is probably very, very important. But again, we need to combine the application with the knowledge and with the state of the heart. Otherwise, we will be probably doing it in the wrong way. Sometimes I know some people, they are very, how you call it, materialistic. So very materialistic. So sometimes a materialistic person is very difficult for him or her to do tawakkul, because they are always related to calculations, this, that, and the other. Yes, again, tawakkul doesn't mean you don't calculate stuff, you don't have a budget, you don't do this, you don't do that. But sometimes, for instance, if you were to wait till you have the best and perfect scenario to apply for a job, you might not get that perfect scenario. Or if you wait till you are perfect in your knowledge to start teaching, you will not get to that perfect situation to start teaching. Or if you want to get the best situation to go and propose to somebody, sometimes, as long as you have the basics, just do tawakkul. This is where tawakkul works, I tell you. Of course, you have the basics, but Bismillah, do tawakkul on Allah, and then Allah will aid you. especially in different scenarios, like where the hadith says, ثلاث حق على الله عونهم. Three type of people Allah promised to support and aid. Number one, الناكح يريد العفاف. Somebody who wants to marry to protect himself and his chastity. Allah has promised to aid him or her. So we don't need to have the savings in the bank to start your life, and you have to have a house, and you have to have I don't know what. Of course, if you have this, it will be that much better, of course. But at least you have the basics. You have a job, you have good earning. You can run a house, and not necessarily a house, or probably a flat. Yes, and that's it. Of course, many other things to tick on these boxes of the requirements, but sometimes on the financial side, we might be very fussy. Don't. If you have the basics, do tawakkul on Allah, and Allah promised that He will support. He will. So three types Allah will support, and this is one of them. The one who wants to marry to protect himself from haram. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to understand tawakkul, and enable us to apply tawakkul in the true sense of tawakkul, inshallah ta'ala. Let me finish here and open the floor for your questions, inshallah ta'ala.
Jazakumullah khairan, Sheikh. It's an intriguing topic, and Jazakumullah khairan for giving such clarity on it. Do we have any questions? Please raise your hands or put them on the chat. In the example, Sheikh, of the three levels, you gave the first level of delegating a matter to a lawyer. And then the second one, you talked about
Not
a child.
necessarily a lawyer, somebody whom you trust, his knowledge, his expertise, his guidance, his compassion, and so on.
So the difference between level 1 and level 2 is the second one, the child has a deeper bond with their mother than the first person who's relying on their friend.
Yes. Yes, because you see the difference. The little boy or the little girl, they cannot go and earn their money. They cannot go and make their food. They cannot go, to toilet by themselves. So you see that the complete reliance on the mother. Yes, this is the big difference between level 1 and level 2. And level 3 is beyond this.
So in terms of understanding this then, in terms of tying your camel, you continue to tie your camel, but the higher up the level, the more your realization that you're utterly helpless. Is that it?
Yeah, you start seeing like a drawn picture from above. You see all the details connected now. You always saw this picture disjointed, but when you have the bird's eye view, you see, yeah, it seems it's not connected, but the bigger picture, it's all in one circle, all connected.
Lovely. Jazakallah khairan. Sunny, your question, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. I've got two questions actually. One, again, help me understand the middle part. I've understood knowledge and I've understood but when you say state of heart, you get me confused. Just in a nutshell, one sentence about the state of the heart.
It's not, tawakkul is not a word you pronounce. Yeah, I am a person of tawakkul. It isn't. You need in your heart to feel that you really rely on Allah Azza wa Jal. You don't rely on your action. I did go to work, then definitely I will get my salary.
So being sincere in your belief.
It's connection of the heart with Allah. This is the true tawakkul. That your heart is heavily relying on Allah, leaning on Allah, and trusting Allah. Yes, this is the state of the heart.
Okay. And the second question is a general question, and I don't know whether it's appropriate to ask it, but because it's been on my mind a lot. Also in other sessions with other people, I hear also my husband saying, this is a hadith, but it's not so strong, and maybe the chain is not good, but I'll tell it anyway. And I'll always ask myself, why bother telling a hadith that is weak? Why not just getting rid of them and not telling them? Because if they are weak, and if we're not supposed to follow them, why bother telling them?
Yeah, I got your point. Let me tell you. Unless the hadith is fabricated, true lie, then you shouldn't say it. So if it's fabricated, then definitely you shouldn't say it. If it's a weak hadith, we have different levels of weak hadith. And sometimes we do bring this to your attention to warn you against this. That although, yeah, you might read this in some books, but be careful, this is not authentic one. So it's bringing this to your attention, not because we believe it's 100% a true, authentic narration, but sometimes it's bringing this to your attention to warn you against this. Yes? And the other thing, the scholars did talk about the weak narrations. It's a thesis, actually. Many scholars or students of knowledge did write a thesis on that. The weak hadith and the effects of the weak hadith, or how did the scholar deal with the weak hadith al-da'if. So they have conditions for the weak hadith if you want to use. If you didn't fulfill the conditions of the weak hadith, then you cannot use it. So not every weak hadith you get rid of it. No, there are some weak hadith you can use, but there are conditions needs to be in place to use the hadith if it's weak. One of these conditions that it should not be very heavily relying on liars in the chain of transmitters. If all the chain of transmitters are liars, then definitely we can't rely on this hadith. Sometimes you have some weak narrations because of one narrator in that chain of transmitters. So if we can find another narration, another chain with somebody who has a different criteria of that narrator, yes, then we might use this narration. It's an art, actually. It's a science to deal with the weak narrations. So to cut a long story short, not all weak narrations we get rid of it. There are conditions to deal with the weak narrations, and we have different methods among the scholars of hadith how to deal with it.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan.
I believe, Sheikh, you've said in previous sessions that you would never use weak hadith when it's to do with rulings, but if it's to do with encouraging people to do something good, then it's a different matter.
Yeah, something they call the scholars fada'il al-a'mal. So the scholars are less strict if you use the weak hadith in encouraging for something good. Fada'il al-a'mal, so virtuous actions. Again, with that in place, it shouldn't be very, very weak. It shouldn't be heavily relying on very weak narrators and so on. So if it's weak, but not very weak, then yes, the scholars have no issue to consider in encouraging people on doing good things and so on. That's fine.
And I think last question to end with, Sheikh, a question which has also come up many times, medical insurance. You're saying, that we can take medicine, but in an age where the NHS is crumbling, what would you suggest? And also for people who are offered medical insurance through work, they're offered some heavily discounted scheme. Should they take it or avoid it?
But in our scenario, in our situation these days, but I think it's a need. So under the need, yes, you can take it. But if there's no need, then no.
So if somebody is perfectly healthy, then no need. But if they have some underlying issues, will need medical help, then perhaps for them it's appropriate.
Yeah, but they will not give him insurance if he has medical issues.
So
Therefore, it depends on the situation where, like now the NHS, as you stated, is in chaos. So there's a need then to have an alternative to protect yourself and your family and so on. And if this is the case, then there's a need for that. And then you can take medical insurance based on this need.
And if we have no other questions, that brings us to the end of the session. Jazakumullah khairan to everyone who attended this evening, and we look forward to covering love next week, Sheikh.
Inshallah, yes. Al-Mahabba.
Jazakumullah khairan.
وإياكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم، وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة. اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولأزواجنا وذرياتنا، ثبتنا وثبتهم على دينك وطاعتك يا رب العالمين. اللهم ارحمنا فإنك بنا راحم، ولا تعذبنا فإنك علينا قادر. اغفر لنا ولوالدينا ولأزواجنا وذرياتنا وأحبابنا والمسلمين. صلي وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد آله وصحبه أجمعين. آمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله